Good morning, students. Today, from your Hornbill books, we are doing chapter number 3, Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues, written by A.R. Williams. Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues provides a deep insight into man's keen desire to know and analyze the roots of our civilization. The passage exports us to Egypt, the land of the pyramids and ancient civilization. The mummies which lay buried in those wonders of the world had startling facts to reveal about human life thousands of years ago. The discovery of Tut's tomb in 1922 inspired many archaeological researchers to speculate about what happened to him as he died an early and untimely death. Discovering Tut, the Saga Continues by A.R. Williams. Saga means a long story. So, A.R. Williams analyzes the various efforts made by archaeologists, radiologists, anatomists, and forensic experts to study King Tut's mummy and to unravel the mysteries associated with his life and death. Let's read the chapter. He was just a teenager when he died. So, we are talking of King Tut, that when he died, he was in his teens. The last eye of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. So he was the last eye. Eye means successor, inheritor of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries. So the Egyptian dynasty came to an end because after the death of King Tut. He was laid to rest, laden with gold, and eventually forgotten. And he was buried. Laid to rest means buried. Laden with gold, that is filled with gold, loaded with gold, and eventually forgotten. And with time, he was forgotten. Since the discovery of his tomb in 1922, the modern world has speculated about what happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. So, King Tut's tomb was discovered in 1922, that is November 26, 1922, and the modern world has speculated, that is, they have formed the theory that what might have happened. How did King Tut died in his teens? And they are of the view that murder being the most extreme possibility, so they believe that he might have been murdered. Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut has undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death. So, Tut's mummy has been taken from the tomb and is leaving his tomb for the first time in 80 years, and he is undergoing a CT scanner, so that now the CT scanner is meant for what? It offers new clues about his life and death, so that the CT scanner can unravel the mysteries associated with his life when he was living and the reasons for his death, and provides precise data for an accurate forensic reconstruction of the boyish pharaoh. Moreover, to unravel the mysteries associated with the death of King Tut, this CT scanner is going to do what? It is going to provide us accurate data. About what? Accurate forensic reconstruction. Forensic reconstruction means the process of recreating the face of an individual of the boyish pharaoh. Pharaoh means ruler in ancient Egypt. So this CT scanner is going to unravel the mysteries associated with King Tut, as well as it is going to recreate the face of King Tut when he used to look like a boy, when he was a boy king. An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of Kings. So, ancient Egyptian cemetery, that is a large burial ground. What is its name? The name is the Valley of the Kings, and this Valley of the Kings is where there are mummies placed. Mummies the resting place of these mummies. And from there, King Tut's mummy is being taken out, and as it is being taken out, the winds are rising. They are angry winds, and they are rising to the sky, and they are creating dust devils, and these dust devils create a eerie sensation. Dark bellied clouds had scudded across the desert sky all day and now were veiling the stars in cascade grey. So the dark clouds are there. They have scattered in the desert sky and now they were covering the stars in cascade grey. That means the grey clouds were like the grey colored casket which contains the stars. The stars are like jewels which are kept in a cascade. It was 6 p.m. on 5th January 2005. The world's most famous mummy glided headfirst into a CT scanner brought here to probe the lingering medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. So King Tut died 2,300 years ago. On 5th January evening 6 p.m., his mummy was the first mummy to undergo a CT scanner. His head was glided, moved smoothly under the CT scanner. And why? Just to probe, to investigate what? The long-lasting medical mysteries of this young ruler, how he might have died. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped rock-cut tomb some 26 feet underground to pay their respects. So throughout the day, the tourists have been coming from around the world and they have gathered to pay their homage to respect where they have gathered in the confined rock-cut tomb, and this tomb is 26 feet underground. They gazed at the murals on the walls of the burial chamber and peered at Tut's gilded face, the most striking feature of his mummy-shaped outer coffin lid. So these tourists are what? They are noticing. They notice what? That the the coffin is in the shape of a mummy. And this coffin is what? This coffin is in gold. They gaze at the murals, they are seeing, they are noticing, they are admiring the murals, the wall paintings on the burial chamber, and they see the Tut's face is also covered and coated with gold. Some visitors read from guidebooks in a whisper. Some visitors are reading in a very hushed tone, in a low voice. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering Tut's untimely death in his late teens. And others are standing silently and wondering how King Tut might have died in his teenage, or wondering with a shiver if the Pharaoh's curse, death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him, was really true. And some are wondering whether the king's curse was true. And what was the curse of the king? The king's curse was that whoever disturbs them, whoever disturbs the mummy from their resting place, they would be cursed. The death or misfortune will fall upon those people. So they are wondering if this curse might come true. The mummy is in a very bad condition because of what Carter did in 1926. Zahi Hawass, Secretary General of Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities, as he leaned over the body for a long first look. So Zahi Hawass is the Secretary General of Supreme Council of Antiquities, and he is leaning over King Tut's mummy and wondering that Howard Carter had damaged the mummy, and this mummy was discovered by Carter in 1920s. That is, the mummy was in a bad condition. Now, who is Howard Carter? Howard Carter, that is, was a British archaeologist who in 1922 discovered Tut's tomb after years of futile searching. So Howard Carter, he is a British archaeologist and he discovered tomb in 1922, and for years ineffectual searching he has done, and he was fortunate to locate King Tut's tomb. Its contents, though hastily ransacked in antiquity, were surprisingly complete. So the contents in the tomb, in the coffin, they were hastily ransacked. That is, somebody might have searched thoroughly for stealing or for destroying, but then the contents were complete. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of the Pharaoh's legend. So when this mummy was located, it had created a sensation in the world because it was the richest royal collection and it has become the part of the Pharaoh's legend now. stunning artifacts in gold. Their eternal brilliance, meant to guarantee resurrection, caused a sensation at the time of discovery. So these um, artifacts, that is the object made by human workmanship in gold, they guarantee what? They guarantee resurrection, that is rising from the dead, that is restoration of life. And it caused a sensation when it was discovered. But that was also buried with everyday things he would want in the afterlife: board games, bronze razor, linen undergarments, cases of food and wine. So that was buried with every bit of thing that a person requires in his lifetime. Every bit of things were buried with Tut's body in his coffin, in his tomb, and these all things were in gold, and gold is eternal, gold is brilliant. So that guaranteed resurrection, and these things were what? From the everyday things of food and wine to undergarments to games, everything was kept. After months of carefully searching, recording the pharaoh's funerary treasures, Carter began investigating his three-nested coffin. So it took months for Carter to note down the treasures. Funerary treasures, that is at the time of the last rite, when the king was buried, all these treasures were kept. And Carter took months to notice or make a list of it, record it. Carter began investigating his three-nested coffin. So it was a three-nested coffin, that is, three coffins placed one in another in order of decreasing size. When he opened the first coffin, he found a shroud adorned with garlands of willow and olive leaves, celery, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers, the faded evidence of a burial in March or April. So, when he investigated this three nested coffin, when he opened the first one, the evidence of willow and olive leaves and wild celery told that King Tut might have passed in March or April. When he finally reached the mummy, though he ran into trouble. So, when he finally located King Tut's mummy, he was in trouble. What trouble? The ritual resin had hardened, cementing Tut to the bottom of his solid gold coffin. So, the ritual resin was poured by the priest at the time of burial. What is resin? Resin is a sticky, flammable, organic substance. So, this was poured when King Tut's body was wrapped in bandages and all. This was poured. So, that resin had hardened, it had cemented the body, the mummy of King Tut, with the solid gold coffin. No amount of legitimate force could move them. Any reasonable sort of force was applied. Everything was done, but mummy did not move. It did not come out. The body did not come out. Carter wrote later what was to be done. Carter said, what should he do on his part? What he could have done? The sun can beat down like a hammer this far south in Egypt, and Carter tried to use it to loosen the resin. So, Egypt country, there's a whole lot of warmth. So, he says that the sun beats like a hammer, and Carter thought that it would be better if he places the coffin of King Tut in the heat of the Egyptian heat, then it might lose the resin, it might melt the resin. For several hours, he set the mummy outside in blazing sunshine that heated it to 149 degrees Fahrenheit. So Carter did what? He kept the King Tut's mummy in the hot sunshine so that the resin that had hardened, it could get melted in the temperature of 149 degrees Fahrenheit. Nothing much, nothing moved, nothing shifted. He reported with scientific detachment that the consolidated material had to be chiseled away. Chisel means to cut away from beneath the limbs and trunk before it was possible to raise the king's remains. So he said, Carter, that to take out King Tut's mummy from the coffin, he had to cut the king's limbs and trunk from the bottom of that gold coffin, and he did this to because that hardened material was not able to come out, it did not melt, so he had to cut the king's body from beneath the limbs and trunk, and he did this with scientific detachment. In his defense, Carter really had no choice. Moreover, he did not have any choice what to do when he has to investigate the body, so he was not left with any choice. If he hadn't cut the mummy free, thieves most certainly would have out circumvented the guards and ripped it apart to remove the gold. If Carter would not have cut the body from the gold coffin, thieves would have done what? They might have fooled the guards, outwitted the guards, and teared the body apart in trying to steal the gold, in trying to remove the gold. In that time, the royals were fabulously wealthy and they thought or hoped they could take their riches with them for his journey to the great beyond. Now, during the time of Tut, it was the people were of the belief that they could take these riches that they used in their lifetime to the journey beyond to the next life, that is life after death. That is why, and the royals were very wealthy, they were very rich people, so they were of the view that they can carry their riches to the next life. King Tut was lavished with glittering goods. So King Tut, when his funeral rites were happening, the treasures were all he was lavished with. A large amount of gold was kept in his coffin. What was there? Precious collars. Collars means an ornament that is worn around the neck. Inlaid necklaces and bracelet, rings, amulets, and amulets again are ornament that people wear around the neck so as to protect them against evil. A ceremonial apron, sandal, sheets. Sheets means covering for his fingers and toes, and the now iconic inner coffin and mask, all of pure gold. So King Tut also was of the belief, as we have been told, that people were of the belief that they are rich and they can carry their riches to the next life. So King Tut was also laden with all these beautiful shining goods of gold, and these were all gold, whether it is collars or necklaces or bracelets or amulets, aprons, sandals, coverings for fingers and toes, coffins, even the uh, inner coffin and mask. A mask was also there, and these were all gold. To separate that from his adornments, Carter's men removed the mummy's head and severed nearly every major joint. Now, to separate that from the bottom of the gold coffin, as well as all the decorative items that were kept, Carter's men had removed the mummy's head. First, they removed the head of the mummy, and then severed that, then separated, divided nearly every major joint of the uh, King Tut's mummy. Once they had finished, they reassembled the remains on a layer of sand in a wooden box with padding that concealed the bed where King Tut now rests. So he says, when his body was cut from the gold coffin, so as to remove his body from that sticky substance resin, or to remove from that coffin, the workmen again reassembled the body, but this time his resting place was a wooden box and it was cushioned with the sand. So a bedding of sand was done, a layer of sand was spread, and on it the whole body was reassembled again. The king's mummy was reassembled again, and it was reassembled in the manner that the damage could not be seen. Archaeology has changed substantially in the intervening decades, focusing less on treasure and more on the fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. So, writer says that archaeology has changed a lot to a great extent in this intervening decades. This is the two events when Carter was there and when Zahi Hawass is there. So a whole lot of difference have come in the study of archaeology. Focusing less on treasure, earlier the archaeologists used to see the treasures of the ancient times. They used to note down the ancient times utensils or things or cases or the ornaments or the clothes. They used to note down these. The more focus was on treasures in earlier times. And now on the and more on the fascinating details of life and intriguing mysteries of death. But now archaeology, there is the study is more on the thrilling aspect of life and fascinating mysteries of death, that how the person was when he was living in his lifetime and how that person passed away or died. It also uses more sophisticated tools, including medical technology. So now the archaeology has changed to a greater extent that the advanced and complex tools are used, and medical technology has also been introduced in archaeology. In 1968, more than 40 years after Carter's discovery, an anatomy professor x-rayed the mummy and revealed a startling fact: beneath the resin that cakes his chest, his breastbone and front ribs are missing. So many people have done study on King Tut's. When Carter discovered it, he was into noticing the treasures and every bit. Then there was an anatomy professor. He had studied the Tut's mummy, and he revealed a fact, and the fact was what? That the resin that was poured onto the King Tut's mummy, that resin, he notices that that the breastbone and front ribs were not there in the body. In his anatomy class, he might have said so. Today, diagnostic imaging can be done with computed tomography or CT, by which hundreds of X-rays in cross sections are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. So it says today the things have changed. Today, the studies have changed regarding archaeology. Now the dead body or the mummy is undergoing a CT scanner, that is a computed tomography. And what happens? Hundred of X-rays in cross sections are put together like slices of bread to create a three-dimensional virtual body. So when CT scanner happens, so there are many cross-sectional photos taken of the solid body, and then a three-dimensional figure is created of a non of a person, non-existing physical body. What more would a CT scan reveal of that than the lingering? What more a CT scan reveal of that than the X-ray? And could it answer two of the biggest questions still lingering about him? How did he die, and how old was he at the time of his death? So, the writer author says that how different can a CT scanner be from an X-ray? And then he says, can CT scanner announce or reveal the most uh, unknown facts or mysteries related to King Tut? That how did he die? Can CT scanner tell us that how King Tut passed away, died, and how old was he at the time of death, and what was his age at the time of his death? Now these two questions, students, these two questions are unanswered in this chapter. King Tut's demise was a big event even by royal standards. He was the last of his family's line, and his funeral was the death rattle of a dynasty. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear. So he says, considering the royal standards, his death was a big event. King Tut's death was a big event. Why? Because he was the last of his family line, that is the lineage. He was the last of his family lineage, that is, he was very young, he did not get married, and he did not have kids. He was the last one in his family. His funeral was the death rattle of a dynasty, and with his death, the dynasty came to an end. But the particulars of his passing away and its aftermath are unclear, and the particulars how he passed away, what happened to the dynasty are not clear.